Part of the agenda, members, and that takes us along to local board input. And the local board input is from Chair Margaret Miles from the Upper Harbour Local Board, and it relates to the notice of motion, which is the item after next. And Margaret is joining us via electronic connection to speak to the notice of motion. That's the Wasp Hanger and Hobsonville Master Plan question before us. Excuse me. Margaret, are you with us now?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And
Welcome.
thank you for the opportunity. Apologies for being on Skype, but we have a full day of looking at our local board work program for the coming year, so hence I really needed to be here. So thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the notice of motion being put forward. And I just want to very briefly go through some timelines as to where the local board sits on this. We have formal resolutions dating back to March 2020 when we agreed to allocate 500k to the Wasp Hanger project. In July, we submitted to the emergency budget. In December, we again had formal resolutions that went on to the 10-year budget and the mayoral proposal. Interesting to note that with the Wasp Hanger first report, which followed a lot of workshops back in 19 March last year, at that point the project was to implement a fit out to the existing Wasp Hanger. Panuku had been receptive and we were discussing lease options, and it was proposed that Auckland Council Leisure Network would operate the facility. Also interesting to note in that document was the fact that we were advised that the Wasp Hanger is a heritage building, which in fact we only found out recently isn't quite the case. And also there were estimates about the fit out, etc. So then moving on, we provided a letter to the Panuku board on the 17th of March, asking that it not be sold. On the 19th of March, we received a response from Panuku, which interestingly said, it seems more appropriate that once the structural work is done and the building is ready for sport and recreation to fit out and occupy it, we as in Panuku transfer it back to Auckland Council's asset register, which is something again that we've asked for some time. Following on from there, we received an email finally in response to the presentation to the Panuku board in 30th of July from David Rankin, saying that his team were reviewing the existing that Mace's team were undertaking a review of the existing business case and the necessary finding required to retain the asset. Then basically a letter was sent, and I think you do have some of these documents, to Claudia on the 23rd of October, again referring to the board's desire to retain the Wasp Hanger site for a recreation facility. We then received a memo from Panuku from Marion Webb on the 12th of October, stating that because PSR said they had no money, Panuku had no money, whereas we'd actually heard it around the other way, but anyway. And also advising that they would put us in touch with with Kāinga Ora basically at a time that was appropriate, but we've not had any linkage to Kāinga Ora via Panuku at all. November the 11th, we again submitted to the Finance and Performance Committee, again raising our desires that the Wasp Hanger was not sold. Then just looking briefly at the Unlock Hobsonville document 2018 to 221 work programme. It's interesting to note that page 16 refers to sport and recreation, the Wasp Hanger repurposed for sport and recreation, celebrate the site's heritage in early and expected win 2021. Page 19 of that document again refers to the strategic framework sport and rec, Wasp Hanger repurposed for community use. Page 20, organic growth stage development, deliver community amenity, again bullet point the repurposing of the Wasp Hanger by Auckland Council. sport and rec to provide indoor sport facility. Page 35, existing buildings, referring to the Wasp Hangar as an Art Deco building constructed in 1940, housed the Wasp helicopters bought by the government in 56, and again to be retained as a character building, provides exciting reuse opportunity for a range of uses. Page 37, community amenity, again, additional amenity with the repurposing of the Wasp Hangar for sport and recreation. And the last one in that document, short-term delivery, community amenity, page 55, repurpose of the Wasp Hangar by Auckland Council, sports and rec to provide an indoor facility. And sorry, page 58 was the last, staging at a glance, year one, repurpose the Wasp Hangar, Auckland Council sports and rec. So then looking at the memo that came out yesterday, just some of the key factors in that. The number 7, the Wasp Hangar and surrounding sites, was part of the emergency budget 2021 considerations were subject to local board input and public consultation. In actual fact, I struggle with that because the Wasp Hangar was not in the list of sale through that emergency budget process, hence the local board didn't have input, and hence the public were most definitely unaware of it. Had they been, I would suggest that there would have been a flurry of applications or submissions, from both all the sporting codes that have supported it over the years and also from the residents. The sale and purchase negotiations achieving intended high-level outcomes as in the master plan, well, basically that again goes back to the comments I've made about it being repurposed for sport and rec. The Upper Harbour Board basically talks about the One Local initiative. There was considerable work done over a 12-month period looking at the Wasp Hangar development, and at no time were we advised by Sport and Rec or by Panuku that the Wasp Hangar was part of the sale that had been agreed in 2015 under very different circumstances. The number 13, the Panuku board approved the development agreement in February 21. We've not been provided with any information about that or any discussions prior or after. Basically, I think in summing up really, a question the board has is what real protection does character building, as we've now found is the true definition of it, it's not a heritage building, what does that provide for our residents? And secondly, at the very least, we would urge the governing body to ensure that in any sales agreement there is reference to the future use of the Wasp Hangar as a sport and recreation facility, which would be consistent with the Unlock Hobsonville 218-221 document. The board feels without this, there's a huge risk that the facility will be lost. And bearing in mind that even though now the seismic strengthening is up to 3.9 million, plus the other costs that were additionally originally referred to around about the million, that's still a very, very cheap option for a facility which has been proven through council documents as having a major, major need for our area. So I guess, yeah, happy to take any questions, but this is something that's been dear to the heart of the Upper Harbour Local Board for 18 plus months now, and something that we would like to see achieved for our residents. So we're very concerned about any sale occurring without some sort of condition or notation about the proposed future use. So thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chair Margaret. That's great. Good outline. Thank you. Questions of Chair Margaret Miles, members? And Councillor Watson to start, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Margaret. You spelt out in quite some detail there the plethora of documents going to the Wasp Hangar and the notion that that it's a character building, that it's being repurposed for community use, and certainly in the last year and a half or whatever it is, that community use has been to a sports facility. In terms of this sale process, I just want to pick up on one thing you said there, however, and that's really just trying to A, determine what is happening with the WASP hangar, and B, how is that being reflected in an appropriate contractual arrangement in the sale and purchase agreement. You mentioned that Panuku had given you the assurance that, you know, that basically as discussions progress over any number of months, that they would be happy to connect you with Kāinga, that's who we're talking about here, just to discuss the WASP hangar and what's envisaged. So, you know, has that happened? I don't think it has, but has it happened? Is there any arrangement currently for it to happen? And would you like it to happen? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can you reply to that,
Thank
Margaret?
you. Yes, I'm happy to reply. No, we have not been put in touch with Kāinga at all. There have been no discussions or even suggestions of discussions. And yes, because we desperately believe that this facility is needed, and if we don't take action, it's going to be lost, we most definitely would like to have discussions with Kāinga.
Thanks, Councillor Watson and Margaret. I've got another question from Councillor Walker, then I'll go to Councillor Angela Dalton.
Sure. So I've just got a question around the information that's been provided to you around the master plan, and there have been a number of master plans. Having said that, the most recent master plan is the one that's been worked on for the last couple of years. Have you had an opportunity to go over that master plan formally, Margaret? And if I just...
Not formally, no. I've received the master plan, and we've looked, as a board, we've looked through that document. So we've not had any opportunity to formally discuss it as a board at a board meeting.
Sure. So, for example, the master plan states this plan considers Airfield Central, that's the sub-precinct that includes the WASP hangar, as an integral part of the Hobsonville Point framework, master plan and vision, supporting and providing for the continued success of the suburb. And associated with the WASP hangar is the WASP square, that is open space, and that is referenced as a neighbourhood park that will match the area of that identified in the 2016 plan change. So in terms of the provision for park space, as far as the Upper Harbour Local Board is concerned, as it goes to Hobsonville, have you had any discussions with Panuku around the park space that was identified as being vested in council in addition to the WASP hangar?
No, we haven't.
Margaret?
Thank you. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. Hi, Margaret. And it's just going to be points of clarification. And I happened to be up there about a month ago having a look because I had to drive around Herald Island and then went up there, so I'm familiar with the visuals, which is helpful for me. Just to clarify, it's been a dream of the local board for 18 months. Is 18 months the right time frame?
I think yes, at least that, because long before we had the formal report to the March 2020 meeting, we had recognised the potential and also the potential cost saving to provide an indoor facility. So it would be 18 months to 2 years, because there was a lot of informal discussions prior to the business meeting in March 2020.
Thank you. And did you say that this was your OLE? And if so, what was the total cost, capital cost?
No, this wasn't our OLE. Our OLE is a bigger indoor court facility, which has been gone through needs analysis, etc. And basically this, if you like, was something that staff saw also as an interim to the provision of the Upper Harbour Local Board OLE. The cost back in back in the original report, or the business report we had, I think referred to estimated fit out of the facility to 705, leisure equipment estimated at 200, and then there was the other money that Panuku were going to spend, which I think at the time we were told was about 1.5. But no, this wasn't our Ollie. It was never intended to become our Ollie. But as a board, we were pragmatic in realising that our Ollie was not going to happen in a rush. And so therefore it was appropriate to put the 500k that had been previously allocated to our Ollie to this project to actually get an outcome for residents.
Thank you. And your OLI is, I'm assuming, deferred, as is everybody's. Did you lose any other capital projects through the emergency and recovery budgets?
Well, I don't know if lose is the right word, but we certainly had a lot deferred, particularly the projects from the NCI money. That was received in compensation for the loss of reserve money with the NCI project going through the previous hockey grounds. So yes, there were a lot of those projects that were put on hold, and I guess we're yet to find out whether, hopefully we don't lose them. But there was definite impact on delivery of projects in the Upper Harbour area.
Thank you, Margaret. Chair, it'd be helpful to get a real good understanding of those other capital projects that are up for delivery at some point, just for the context.
Thanks, Councillor, and thank you, Margaret. Now, I don't have any further questions there, Margaret. So, Margaret, thank you for connecting with us and coming in electronically. We appreciate that. Would somebody like to move a motion of receipt and acknowledgement of Margaret's attendance? Councillor Walker and Councillor Cooper, do you mind if I make it Councillor Watson as the ward councillors? That's moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Members,